Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Dear friends and colleagues, on behalf of the Cyprus Computer Society, I welcome you at tonight's extraordinary event, the world premiere of the documentary Call of the White. It's a story of 8 young women from different countries, different cultures, different religions, joined together in one single challenge to ski to the South Pole. I am personally filled with all sorts of feelings tonight. Firstly, I am amazed and overwhelmed with the achievement of these girls. Having been lucky to witness their anxiety throughout the preparation and the expedition itself, I was reading each day your blog from the Antarctica, and so I can't help but admire what you have achieved. Secondly, I'm happy that tonight we will all have the chance to talk and meet these 3 girls, Felicity, Sophia, and Stephanie, and get to know them in person. Thirdly, and most importantly, I feel proud. I am proud of our Stephanie. I am proud of her parents, that knowing the dangers that she was getting into, they supported her and let her live this dream. And thirdly, I am proud that the Cyprus flag was held high at the South Pole. And nowadays, we all need to feel proud of our small country and what our young generation is capable of doing. I would like to welcome Felicity, the group leader, and thank her for accepting our invitation and be here with us tonight. Felicity, we heard so much about you from Stephanie. We had the pleasure of having Stephanie as a speaker last year at Women's Day event, and she vividly shared with us all your experiences. Thank you for sharing all these messages in your book, and we wish you every success in everything you plan to achieve in the future. I also welcome Sophia, who is a fellow IT professional from Singapore. What a great will and determination, Sophia, to be separated from your children and take part in this expedition. Welcome to Cyprus. Dear friends, I know you're all eager to see the documentary and hear the girls speak, so I will now let you enjoy the evening. Okay, so the girls are now here, available for you to ask questions from the audience. Felicity, Sophia, Stephanie, please take the floor. Okay, so Christina will have the microphone. So anyone who wants to ask a questions, please raise your hand, and Christina will be there with the microphone.
I'd like to thank Janos and the Cyprus Computer Society for bringing this to Cyprus, bringing Felicity to Cyprus. And for the first time since January 2010, we are all together again, which is absolutely an amazing feeling. And I'd like to thank every single one of you for coming here. It's, thank you so much. Any questions? Come on, I know you've got questions.
Tell us a bit about what inspired you on this expedition.
Well, I think Felicity should tell us.
Okay, the question was what inspired us to take on the expedition. Well, I mean, I can't talk for these two, but for me, what inspired me to put it together was I've been doing a lot of travelling around the world in the previous 5 years, and it slowly began to dawn on me that I was actually extremely lucky to be a woman in the 21st century who was able to make my own decisions in life. And not all women, sadly, today around the world have that opportunity. And that's something that, as a woman, makes me very annoyed, to be frank. And I thought, well, what can I do about it? I'm not a politician, I'm not an aid worker. But I thought, well, if every woman could turn what they're good at towards addressing this in some way, maybe that would help. So I thought, well, what do I do? Well, the only thing I do is organise expeditions. So then the idea began to form about putting together an international women's team to do something like skiing to the South Pole. Because I think skiing to the South Pole has become a bit of a metaphor for overcoming adversity to achieve a common goal. And so then my challenge was to go and find the women that wanted to do it. So Sophia, if you'd like to explain why, when you saw an advert on a website, women wanted to ski to the South Pole, why you replied.
Okay, I think for me, in general, there's actually two main points that I want to put across. I think I'm one of the slightly different from the rest of them. I'm actually married and have kids. So for me to put that down and to try on this expedition, and of course with the risk involved. But one main motivation for me is that I wouldn't want to have the regret to say, oh, I wish I would have done that if not for that, if not for my family. So there's still the part of me that wants to do it. So, but the other second big motivation came from my daughter. She was 12, she was 11 years old then. So I shared with her the thought. I said, hey, Mom's going to try for the South Pole. And then just like any other kid, she said, oh well, if you did it, or if you get to it, it'll be a miracle. So I put it down. I said, I'm going to put down what you say. And well, if you never try, you never know. So there she basically put the final stamp to say, okay, I'm going to try for it. And there I'm here.
Brilliant. Well, my story is not that interesting, I have to say. I just, I thought it was a good idea. It was really hot, it was August, and it just seemed, South Pole just seemed brilliant, to be completely honest. But then, of course, when I got into it and I looked at the website and I saw the whole meaning behind it and the philosophy, I thought it was a great opportunity to show that, we women can do things that, men always seem to take the first of it. So I'm especially proud that I'm the first Cypriot man or woman to go to the South Pole. Yes.
How did you choose the countries that you selected? Because your first selection was which countries you would pitch to.
Yeah, so the question was, how did I choose which countries? International can mean a whole lot of things, and it was the 60th anniversary of the Commonwealth in 2009, so I thought, well, that's quite apt to focus on Commonwealth in their 60th anniversary year. And when I looked at the list of countries that belong to the Commonwealth or associated with the Commonwealth, I thought, well, that's a really eclectic mix of countries. There's developed nations in there, there's nations that are struggling with political problems or economic problems. There's all sorts of different religions and cultures mixed in. So then it was looking at which of those countries would make a good mix. So it wasn't just about a geographical spread, it was also about a cultural spread, so that we had a real representation of how diverse the Commonwealth is. Cyprus and Malta, I believe, are the only two Commonwealth countries within Europe apart from the UK. And when I looked at Cyprus and the political history here and just the culture of Cyprus, I thought, well, it would be fantastic to include that within the mix. So that's how come Cyprus became one of those 8. And then if you look at the mix of countries, there are countries that have a history of exploration, like the UK, like Singapore, and then countries that don't, like Ghana and Jamaica. And I thought that was really important to put that in the mix.
Mr. Presence of a man. You could have blamed him for forgetting the shopping.
Well, I do have to say, quite a few times, I know I woke up snuggling up to Ira, but I have to say that it had nothing to do with me thinking she was a man. It was more because it was cold.
Did you miss the presence of a man?
Well, I never think about that, but for me, it's interesting that I actually didn't miss my family. For me, in a way, it's kind of a nice, good break away. Just be in emptiness and doing nothing but just to ski.
I often work with teams that are mostly men, working in the polar industry. I'm usually a minority being a woman. And I can tell you that a tent of women smells just as bad as a tent of men after 6 weeks. But I can also tell you that there wasn't half as much crying with the women as there is when you're working with the men. So it's not as stereotypical as you would expect.
What were you thinking when you were skiing for so many hours? Like, what were you feeling? What thoughts passed through your mind? Was it numb, meditation, in the white, and what was the feeling like?
I think, well, for me, simple things comes first. It's like, okay, what's the food I miss most? Well, for Singaporean, we always go for food. So it's not about nice, big, fancy meals, but really something very simple back at home that I miss. But there are times whereby you start to think about anything under the sun. But it's also in this expedition that I actually gained a lot from one of the realizations that I never noticed. One fine day I was thinking to myself, if this were the last day, what would I do? Or is there something that I regret that I've not done? Or is there something that I wish that I would have tried harder? But it came to me that I realized there's nothing that I would want to redo or change the way it is. So that really came upon to me, and I'm glad that I came to that realization as well.
I don't think I really had anything as profound as that happen to me, but I honestly remember struggling to think of things to think about. You know, I would ski for a whole 90 minutes just panicking because I couldn't think of anything to think about. And, you know, that's the kind of level of boredom that the monotony does drive you to. But I think being out there and doing that kind of trip does make you appreciate the simple things of being at home and how precious it is just to be sat on a sofa with a loved one and a glass of wine having a quiet evening. And yet, you know, it's bizarre that then when you go home, or for me, when I go home, I think, oh, this is all great. But then the first thing that pops into my head is, I want another adventure, I want to get back, I want to do something more. So I like to think that doing the two things makes me appreciate the two halves of my life. I appreciate being at home, but I also appreciate the privilege of doing trips like this.
Interesting. I suppose mine was more, if you think of all your memories and everything you know as an onion, you start off as the most recent is your outer layer. So you sort of analyze that, and that's quite superficial things, the most recent stuff that's happened to you. And then as time passes by, you've got so much time that each bit gets stripped away, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper, more sort of far away memories as well. And you sort of analyze everything just simply because you've got so much time and there's absolutely nothing else to do. So you analyze absolutely everything. And as Felicity says, it's a really scary feeling reaching a point where you actually have nothing to think about. Because it rarely happens. Even when you want to take a time out on a weekend and you say, oh, I'm going to have some time to myself, you're always still thinking and analyzing stuff. And it's such a weird, it's such an odd feeling not having anything to think about, whereby you just go back to what you were thinking of, again, at the beginning of the expedition, and you just go through the whole process again until you get bored of that, and then thankfully you reach the South Pole by that point.
You were obviously both delighted to be selected for the team, but was there a moment in Norway where either of you thought, I'm not quite sure what I've signed up for, maybe it'd be better if I wasn't chosen?
I'm going to disappoint people.
Well, in fact, I did consider again when I was given, or I was told that yes, I'm going, because in one sense I'm also quite worried whether I'm strong enough, and for me, because also I have surgery on my knee before, so I wouldn't want to be the one dragging the team down. But I thought about it again, and I realized it's not about an individual trip, it's actually about the team. So I realized that yes, I may have some weakness, but I know that I have the rest of the team members to depend on. So yeah, that's where I say, yes, I'm coming.
I have a confession to make. The first 3 days we were in Norway, I did actually wonder about my sanity. And I do remember sending my dad a text saying, couldn't I have applied for an expedition in the Caribbean? This is a true story. But then the first 3 days passed, and you sort of, your brain sort of thaws out, and you get used to it, and you get used to the cold, and you're acclimatized. And I was just having an absolute blast in Norway. And I thought, that's brilliant, that's great, I got selected, I was ecstatic. And then we went to New Zealand, and I thought the exact same thing for the first 3 days. But then again, just completely got into it, and thankfully didn't have any of that again when we got to Antarctica. But I have to admit that a couple of times the cold did get to me, so I have to apologise about that. But I have to point out that I would have not quit at any point. It was just more of the, right, okay, I need to get over this. What is the easiest way to get over it? And I just sort of closed my mouth and got on with it. So, you know.
That's my wife, by the way. Well done both of you and to the other ladies, obviously. I just want to ask, how was it coming back? I mean, how was it coming back to reality? Because I can remember they asked an astronaut one day, as soon as he returned from the moon, and they go to him, so what did you do last night? And he said, just came back from the moon, sat on the couch, watched TV. So, how was it for you guys, coming back to reality?
Well, my return was probably not as exciting as the rest of the team. Sophia and Steph can tell you their own stories, but the girls going back to their home countries, there was quite a lot of fuss made of them. And so Rena in India was welcomed by bands and flower garlands and petals strewn on the floor and things like that. But I think my favourite story is Kylie from New Zealand. During the expedition, she'd been tweeting that she was really craving Marmite on toast. And so when she got home to her little house in Wanaka, she found the front doorstep piled high with parcels from all over New Zealand of jars of Marmite and loaves of bread, so that when she got home, the first thing she could eat was Marmite on toast. And I thought that was just fantastic. But for me, when I got home, obviously I got back to the UK with the entire team, and we were due to be giving a talk in London the night that we arrived back in the UK. But I don't know if you know, but in January 2010, the UK had a microscopic amount of snowfall, which drew the whole country to a complete halt. So we flew out of Antarctica completely on time in a plane that had taken off from a runway made of ice, and not a single minute's delay. And yet we got held up in Madrid for a day because there was a centimetre of snow on the runway at Heathrow. So we had to sit there in Madrid, and as the hours clicked by, we realised we're not going to make this event. And we had ambassadors turning up, we had sort of 200 guests turning up to hear us speak. And the plane took off at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were due to be on stage at 7 o'clock in the evening. So we got off the plane at Heathrow, we got on the Heathrow Express. It was literally one of those moments where we ran into the taxi. I was like, taxi, we need you to get to this place in like 5 minutes. And as we got into the taxi, I had our PR lady saying, right, the Commonwealth Secretariat is going onto the stage now to introduce you. And we were in a taxi, the taxi screamed round Trafalgar Square on 2 wheels. We piled out of the taxi, walked in through the double doors, marched straight on stage. Hello, good evening, and gave our first talk about the expedition. So that was my return to the UK. You had a presidential welcome, I seem to remember, back to Singapore.
Well, yeah, that came. Well, when I went back, the president of Singapore actually hosted a reception for me, so that was nice. But other than that, back to my normal life. When I got back, straight after, I think just 2 days later, I'm back being a mom with my kids coming all over me, and I was just thinking, oh God, I need to get back to Antarctica. I'm still thinking about it.
I think my return was probably marred by hibernation. I came back and I had great difficulty being indoors, truth be told. I came back to Cyprus end of January 2010, and I was back at work mid-February. And until probably June, I felt that the walls were closing in on me, and I really didn't know what I was doing in an office. But you slowly get over it, and you sort of come to terms with the fact that you've had this amazing experience, absolutely brilliant. You were privileged to be in Antarctica. And then you slowly get back into life, and small things start looking big instead of, vice versa as they were before. And, you look back with really fond memories on an absolutely amazing team in an amazing place, and you think, well, thank you for everyone who sponsored and put personal sort of money into sending me there. I really appreciate it. And a lot of people who did that are in this room tonight, so thank you so much.
What happened to your body waste?
What's this one?
I think all of us lost about a stone while we were doing the journey, which I remember quite clearly when we were in Patriot Hills, the base camp. There was a very experienced polar veteran who came wandering up to our team and said, well, of course, if you were a really competent team, you wouldn't be losing any body weight at all. And I remember Steph's chin hit the floor. And she said, do you mean I could do all this and not lose any weight? So I don't think this guy realised that he was talking to a team of 8 women for whom losing a stone in body weight was actually a huge bonus, because as far as we were concerned, we'd eaten nothing but chocolate and toffee popcorn for a month or so and had still lost weight, so it was a good thing. But I think more than that, also your body shape changes, and so you look very different when you come back.
It doesn't last for long, though.
Unfortunately.
I think the question was on waste.
Who was doing the filming and how difficult was it?
Well, all right. Well, when we were on the actual expedition on the ice, we had 2 cameras, 2 video cameras, and 2 obviously picture cameras, photo cameras. Well, on good days, it was really easy. On bad days, just fumbling, trying to find the camera, get the batteries out, which were in unmentionable places so they could stay warm and charged. To get those out, put them in the camera, turn it on, stop shaking from the cold, make sure that the wind isn't blowing into the microphone was actually quite hard, a lot harder than it looks on the documentary, I have to say. And that's also another reason why we don't have a lot of footage from bad days. Most of it are sort of more idyllic, blue skies and nice white. I have to say that there are very few photos on there as well.
Yeah, so when the weather was bad, it was the last thing you wanted to do was to fiddle about with the camera.
Sorry, I have to say, sorry for interrupting. The actual question was about our waste.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think
we had to bring everything out of Antarctica with us, absolutely everything. So all types of waste came back with us. So yeah. I don't know if you want us to go into any more detail, but it all came out with us.
It's a pity we didn't bring a poo bag to demonstrate. But yeah. Oh, may I add, we were the first environmentally friendly expedition to do that. So it hadn't been done before. 904 kilometers of waste. Very proud.
Men wouldn't be bothered, I think, probably. And that's what you talked about at night. When you gathered, when you all got together and you finally got the boots off and you were ready for sleep, did you all just crash? You surely chatted. What did you talk about?
Can I say something? Our tent was the evening tent. So in the morning, none of us would be talking to each other, but you could hear the other tent singing, which was a bit of a weird one. But then in the evenings, we would usually have these profound conversations about religion, physics, astronomy, anything you could think of. I am being absolutely honest.
We were the tent of Zen.
We were the tent of Zen, we really were. But it was really interesting because we also had Ira. Our tent was us 3 and Ira from Brunei, and she was our only Muslim team participant. And can I, yeah. Well, we started off the expedition with Ira, of course, having to pray 3 times a day, as you do. And I remember this really vividly. So the first sort of week, Ira starts praying, everyone's really quiet, we're sat in our respective corners, just really, sort of sewing away our kits and making sure that, we're really quiet and respecting her. And then by the end of the expedition, it was just, passing things on top of Ira, talking and making food, spilling things, but it just goes to show you just how easy it is to accept the other person, sort of, adopted in your lifestyle, really. I don't know if you want to add.
I think maybe a quick word to say that, that it's so important that you have different characters within the team. And these 2 teammates here were also in the same we were all in the same tent. And Sophia was a complete superstar. She was the one that would keep us organised, keep us disciplined.
She was
at
mum.
the front of the tent, lighting the stove in the morning and making sure we were all awake. And if we were a bit reluctant to get out of our sleeping bag, giving us a bit of a kick to get us out of our sleeping bags. And absolutely fantastic. And Steph, her role was when we got in the tent in the evening, took off our boots, everyone was completely shattered. And I couldn't even muster a sentence, never mind anything else. But you were the one that kept us laughing and kept us talking and really lifting the spirits of everybody. And no matter how bad the days got, Steph always had a quirky little sort of plus side to talk about at the end. Well, at least it wasn't so bad because of X.
Because we weren't smelling that bad today, or There
was always something, and everybody had their particular role, and the different characters really all came together to make a fantastic whole. And I'm so grateful to both these team members and the other team members for really making that team work, and it was incredible to be part of it.
I think it obviously goes without saying that Felicity was an absolute brilliant leader. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it publicly, and she will hold it against me. She is the kind of person that you'd obviously go into war for, and that's the kind of person that you need as a leader, because if you're in Antarctica and you're in a bad situation, you don't want to question your leader's decisions. You want to have absolute faith, absolute trust in the person that's leading you on, that they have that role and that you are willing to follow in whatever the situation is. And that, of course, is the epitome of what the leader is and the epitome of Felicity. And
thank you very much.
And I hope she takes me on her next expedition because of that.
I am looking for a present.
Okay, can we please have our last question? Yes, please. One last question. Who will be the lucky one?
We should be addressing the questions. How did these parents stand the suspense?
Okay. Would the parents like to talk? Knowing the parents, I don't think they will. I remember when Stephanie was telling me about meeting the Queen, and next to the Queen was the Duke of Edinburgh, and the Duke of Edinburgh claiming, "You must be raving mad," didn't you say? So I would like to thank these mad women for the journey and making us proud of them. And we have some flowers for you. Thank you all for coming and sharing this with us.
Thank you all for coming. I hope you really enjoyed the documentary. And Felicity will be book signing outside if you're interested. And obviously the books are also on sale outside.